Right, well, hopefully everyone can hear and see us. Welcome to our monthly Citizenship by Investment webinar. Thanks very much for taking the time out today. Promise we'll do our best to reward you with new information, some facts and valuable insights if you're considering the Portugal Golden Visa Scheme. So I'm Chris Land, this is James Holmes. We're based in Hong Kong. James and I advise clients based in Hong Kong, Singapore and Thailand. In fact, probably the last couple of years, our largest client base has been non-resident Indians in Singapore, also Brits and Americans. Over the last couple of years, we've helped probably over 200 families now through the Portugal Golden Visa. Pleased to say with 100% success. We're also honoured to have a well-respected Portuguese lawyer, Tirso Olazabal, and worthwhile mentioning, James and I are both licensed financial planners here in Hong Kong with Holmes, and that really does mean we have to apply a very high level of due diligence to the investments that we put in front of our clients, which are Portuguese Golden Visa eligible. Marlow Bray. So Marlow Bray is an information portal, giving you all the facts and knowledge to really make informed decisions. Marlow Bray, we publish a lot of information on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and this really shares hacks, shortcuts, and tips, things that we've learned over the years through transacting over 200 applicants through the Golden Visa Program. Of course, Portugal is the #1 program at the moment, and Tirso, you'll probably be able to correct me here, but I believe the government's had over about 11,000 applications. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So in terms of investment, visa on investment programs, Portugal is at the moment #1 program.
Yes, which is exactly why we're doing this webinar today. It's worth saying that Marlow Bray can guide people on other citizenship programs. So the popular programs other than Portugal at the moment are Canada, Caribbean, Spanish Golden Visa, US, EB5. So if you do need more information on the alternatives, we're happy to talk you through what we know. So agenda for today should be 45 minutes. We're going to allow an opportunity for a Q&A. So feel free to respond or actually put your questions in the chat. We'll come to them at the end of the webinar. Tirso, James, and myself will all field the questions. But obviously there's been a lot of noise, a lot of false information published about the rules, government decisions, perhaps being flip-flopped in terms of change of heart and maybe vote-winning strategies by the president, which Tirso will talk about. So we'll get the facts on where the rules are at now and how you can potentially get on the programme with the current €280,000 investment, which will soon change. We believe it's likely to be in the next few weeks, the investment level will increase to 500,000. So yeah, James.
Thank you, Chris. So I think, first of all, for those who don't know, what is the Portugal Golden Visa? First starting in 2012, the Portugal Golden Visa is a residency by investment program allowing non-EU citizens to invest into Portugal to obtain residency, which comes with a whole host of benefits, with the right to live and work in Portugal, access to education, healthcare, travel throughout the EU, and ultimately, after a 5-year period, the eligibility to apply for citizenship in Portugal, which gives them a European passport. Now, the Portuguese passport or European passport comes with a whole host of benefits, widening your optionality of now the right to live and work in Europe, access to healthcare and education. But from an international perspective, the Portuguese passport is also ranked 5th in the world, which gives clients visa-free access to over 188 countries. So clearly a very strong travel document to have in your arsenal. How have clients invested into Portugal for the sake of the Golden Visa? Well, currently with the existing regime, there are 5 investment methods that we can utilize, ranging from a deposit into a bank account at €1 million, all the way to creating jobs for 10 local employees. But the two most popular methods to date have been, one, real estate, which we can get in at 280,000 euros as a minimum. The second is through funds or venture capital, which is a minimum of €500,000. However, as I'm sure you've already guessed from today's title, there are some imminent changes to the available investments, and we'll be delving into those in much more closer detail in the coming slides. I think just finally, why is the Golden Visa so popular? Well, firstly, clearly, it does create a plan B for applicants going forward. But for the Portuguese Golden Visa particularly, compared to its competitors, it has a very low minimum stay requirement. You only need to spend 1 week each year in Portugal for the next 5 years to then be eligible to apply for your citizenship, meaning for clients potentially such as yourselves, it gives you the right to continue your lives living and working in your home countries, whilst on the sideline, be on your pathway to obtaining an EU citizenship and providing a plan B for you and your family.
The Prime Minister has returned from his holiday. The new legislation looks set to go through very soon, which means the minimum investment level moves up from 280,000 to 500,000 euros. Obviously, the headline of this webinar was getting in at the current level of 280. And for those clients who are quite advanced in the process in terms of knowledge, documentation, and perhaps have looked at it, it is worthwhile speaking to us, ideally tomorrow. We can see if we can get you through in time. It's worthwhile saying, actually, we are offering money-back guarantees to those clients who are in a position to go ahead with the current 280,000 euro investment route at the moment. So, as I say, if you're motivated, if you've got the cash ready, if you have your documentation ready, we can certainly do our best. Tirso, how are you for sound and mic?
Well, I think I'm back on track. Can you hear me now?
We're good. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not sure where should I resume my presentation.
I think just carry on from where you left off, because
Okay. So basically, with the new law coming into force, which we can predict that it will be in a month's time, there will be considerable changes on the types of investments that you can do to obtain a golden visa. So everything that is real estate, no matter if it's direct, indirect investment in real estate, will be out. And you will have left the investment in private equity funds at 500,000 euros. Those private equity funds will not be allowed to invest themselves in real estate. And you will have the creation of jobs and setting up companies with creation of jobs. The other two options will be what we call more or less donations. So 500,000 euros to scientific research, or 250,000 to cultural and heritage programs. These donations have not been used many times in the past. I think that it's like 7 golden visas have been granted with these types of donations. So I think that the main focus will remain on the private equity funds, with the focus outside the real estate. Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for that, Tirso. And I think leading on from Tirso's point, clearly the rules are changing. We still have potentially time to get in under the real estate route. And I think for clients who aren't aware of how do we invest into real estate, what are those options? And since 2020-21, when the rules first changed, real estate now must qualify as a commercial property, i.e. a hotel. And there are 3 different price categories that we can invest in Portugal for the sake of the Golden Visa through real estate. And that ranges from €500,000 to 280,000 euros, and really dependent on the style of property. Is it a new build property or a refurbished property? But also the location. Is it in a highly densely populated area such as Lisbon or Porto, or a low densely populated area such as the Algarve. But when we look at the actual structure of the investment, there are two styles that clients can utilize. The first one is, let's say, more traditional property, i.e., you're buying a direct unit within a hotel, you have title deed in your own name in Portugal. On the flip side, there are co-ownership of a hotel. So you're buying a share of a hotel which is worth 280,000 euros, and that is combined with other Golden Visa investors, typically 100 to 200 other investors within that hotel ownership. And this style is very dominated by five-star resorts such as Hilton and the Marriott, and be very popular for many clients. When we look at property, though, it's also worth noting that there are taxes that need to be paid in addition to the initial investment. And in Portugal, the two most important taxes are, number one, IMT, or municipality tax, which is at 6.5% of the property value. The other is stamp duty, which is at 0.6%. So look to be prepared to pay around an additional 7% for taxes. Now, these investments, we have to hold them for 5 years as per the Golden Visa legislation. Once we've held those for 5 years and we've now applied for either our permanent residency or citizenship, how do we exit these investments? Depends on the project, but there are typically two methods. One is a guaranteed buyback with the developer, and that's at the initial price which you'd have bought it at. The other is selling it on the open market. Again, it really depends on the developer. As Tirso mentioned, though, the rules are changing. These are the rules currently at the moment, and these investments will soon no longer qualify for the Golden Visa. So if you're keen to understand how you can potentially apply under this set of regime rules, let us know, drop us a message in the chat, more importantly, and we'll reach out to you directly and maybe schedule a call in the coming days.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. And without wishing to sound like a salesman here, it is a limited offer, but it is very much time restricted. So yeah, just emphasizing it's what James just ran through there, is what's been very successful for clients over the last few years. It is ending literally in the next few weeks. So yeah, I think there's quite a few people on this webinar who do have advanced knowledge of the program, the current rules. But what I'm going to do next is talk about what's going to happen in the next month or so when the new rules come in. And this is how what we say venture capital funds work. Now, venture capital, maybe a bit of a scary term. You always associate it with high risk, types of investments. But let's kind of just boil it down into basics. Previously, as James was explaining, you invest in either a slice of a hotel or a title deed property, similar to a standard investment property. Whereas a venture capital fund, effectively, this diagram here shows this is not just one asset, this is multiple assets. So in this example, you've got 4 different hotels. So automatically, you've got much more diversification than just buying either one individual unit or one small slice of one hotel. Now, in terms of the protection here, it's worthwhile saying who are the parties involved in this and what do they do and what their responsibilities are. So the first thing you've got here is a fund manager. The main parties here are fund manager, and their responsibility, first of all, they have to be approved by the regulator. Now, the regulator is the CMVM. The regulator is much the same as for clients in Singapore. You have the MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. UK, you have the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA. US, you have the SEC. So ultimately, this is the Portuguese regulator that's responsible for regulating all funds in Portugal. So the fund manager has a responsibility to investors. They have to run the fund professionally. They have to ensure the returns are distributed to investors. And the regulator forces the fund manager to adhere to a criteria of rules that are all set to protect investors. So much the same as if you invested in a mutual fund through, say, your pension, your CPF in Singapore, MPF in Hong Kong, or your SIP, your pension in the UK. So we have diversification, we have legal protection. Compare that, say, with the old route where you're buying one property. You've got no regulatory oversight. Once you've bought it, it's really down to the developer to ensure that asset is being worked and monetized. With this, you've got a fund manager who's highly incentivized to generate returns, because, of course, the fund manager, they earn their money when the asset grows in value. So if they're charging a fee to manage these group of hotels in different regions of Portugal, they want to increase the standard of the hotel, so they're likely to do a refurb. They would likely put a brand on that hotel, so it could be Intercontinental, it could be Hilton. And a hotel that's moved from a 4-star to a 5-star and with an international brand is going to generate a lot more cash than, say, an old family-run hotel, which is just one hotel in a chain. So you've got greater diversification, you've got a wider range of assets, you've got a fund manager that's incentivized for the fund to grow. The additional benefit here, compared with the old route that James touched on, was tax. Is tax, and the fact that, as James said, there's tax on entry with the 280,000 euro route. There's also tax on any growth that you achieve. With the venture capital fund, there's no tax on entry. There's no stamp duty. There's no IMT. There's no municipality tax. And the way these funds are structured, they're also free of tax on the way out. So extremely tax efficient. You don't have to worry about your returns being eaten away by the taxman. So we just covered the regulator, we covered the fund manager. Obviously, it's going to be more money to invest than the previous 280,000 euro level. Some funds offer return on investments that are guaranteed, or dividends that are returned to shareholders periodically, so you can see money come out of the fund. Now, people who are over 45 years old may remember the American businessman Victor Kiam. Victor became famous in the 1980s. He was the guy who bought the electric shaver company Remington, and he featured on their TV ads. And he was quoted in the ad as saying, "A product I'm so impressed with, I bought the company myself." And it's quite a memorable line from advertising. But a thing to look at with a venture capital fund is, do the founding members put their own money into the fund? That's always a telltale sign of a fund that if the founding members are putting their money into, they have the same motivations, they have the same expectations as investors like yourselves. So that's a very key thing to look for, is regulation, fund manager that has their own money in it, i.e. skin in the game, and of course a diverse asset base, a fund that has multiple hotels, multiple assets that provide diversification. It's a bit like going out and buying, say, Apple stock versus buying a mutual fund that contains all tech stocks. In a mutual fund, you're going to get much more diversification. You're not going to get the peaks and troughs. You're going to get a lot more rounded return. So in summary, 500k, that's what you need to be looking at for Portugal Golden Visa next month. We can help you explore the right type of investment that you're comfortable with. There are some very good options out there from fund managers who do have track record. So James and I will be able to talk you through the pros and cons of each one and help you select which one is right for you. So we're coming to the end, and I can see there's a few questions appearing in the chat. In fact, I can see, I'm hoping the chat is working here. So we've got a first question in here, and we'll take it in turn to field the call. So Tirso and James, be ready just to field some questions here. The first one is, are the VC returns guaranteed? So it does depend on the fund. The funds may contain dividends, which are guaranteed. A lot of the time, you are going to get more upside from a fund that doesn't have guarantees. So again, ask these key questions, when you talk to your advisor. Another question that commonly asked as well is what type of returns will I get with a VC fund? So we compare the old model that James explained of 280,000 euros, and the returns tend to be around about 3% per year. Sometimes they're zero because they're just classed as developer loans. But with venture capital, again, because the founders' money is invested in these funds, and because these are what we call institutional grade funds, meaning big organizations, big pension funds, big insurance companies are also putting their money into these, you are likely to get a pretty good return over the course of your investment from this. So there, those are the first two questions. Let's just have a look what else we have. Tirso, what common questions do you get asked by people who are applying from a legal perspective here?
Well, I can see there's a question on the documents, right? Maybe that's a common question that people ask, especially now when they need to be speedy, if they want to make the application with the 280,000 investment on property. So yes, there are some mandatory documents that you need to gather before you make the application, and I would say that the main ones are the criminal record of the main applicant. So the criminal record of the main applicant, he can either choose the criminal record of his country of origin or his country of residence, if it's not the same. For the family members, we will need the criminal records from a country of residence and a country of origin, if it's not the same again. If the main applicant is going to do it with a family, okay, so he has wife and kids, birth certificates, marriage certificates, and other than that, that's it. What we really need is the title of the investment, okay? So if he's buying a property, we will need either the promissory contract that is signed, which is a preliminary contract well, it's before we sign the deed with a notary. So we can either do it with a promissory contract or with the deed of sale and purchase. This is the title that we need to submit the application. So whenever we have these papers ready, we can submit the application. The application is submitted online, okay, and we are good to go. You can ask me, well, so it would be very difficult for me maybe to gather my criminal record and maybe birth certificates here and that, because the criminal record and birth certificates, they have validity dates for the Portuguese authorities. So the criminal record is 3 months and the marriage certificate and birth certificate 6 months. So what we have been doing for these last few clients that want to rush and to submit the application is to make sure that they have the investment done, so they have the title of the investment, and we submit the application with the documents that we have, the personal documents that we have. So if there are some outstanding documents, we will submit the application without those documents, and we'll wait for the immigration authorities to ask for those documents at the time they will analyze the application. Of course, it's not the perfect best case scenario to submit the application. The good thing would be to have everything good to go in one go. But if not possible, there is still this strategy that will allow people to submit the application and under the current law. Okay.
Exactly, and these are the hacks, the shortcuts, the tips that we've learned and refined over the years, and these are also what we share on our YouTube channel at Marlowe Bray. We also publish regular articles on LinkedIn as well. So we're very much focused on getting the client the outcome they're paid for. And I think to reiterate, Tirso and his team, James and I, we've had 100% success rate with clients getting on the program and getting their golden visa. James, in terms of your learning experiences with clients, anything that you've picked up that's worthwhile sharing in terms of hacks, shortcuts, or interesting cases for clients?
Yeah, I think for a lot of clients, a lot of my US-based clients, the biggest pain point has always been the apostle of documents. Obviously, when we get these documents for Portugal, whether that's a criminal record check or birth certificate, we have to get all documents apostilled and translated. And the typical avenues we have to go through in the US, there are long delays spanning 6-8 weeks. And we're very lucky we've got some great contacts within the US and can expedite that process very clearly for clients and make that a much quicker process indeed. I do have a question for Tirso actually, which was regarding the next steps after the government's announcement, and maybe a bit of confusion on my own part. Now it's very clear the government's announced that when they do come back into session, that they will be voting the golden visa law change again, and that also then gets passed through to the president. What actually happens from that stage? I understand obviously the president has to pass this through, but is there a guarantee legal law or something which has to be added to that to ensure it gets enacted? What is sort of those next steps after that vote?
Yeah, so basically, after the government reapproves, let's call it like this, the law again in the next parliament session, the law is sent to the President of the Republic of Portugal for his approval, for his mandatory approval. So he has no second chance to reject it. Okay, so it's more like a pro forma. After that, the president normally he takes a few days to do it. After that, the law is sent for publication. Okay, so the law is normally published 1 week after the ratification and the approval of the President of the Republic. Once the law is published, okay, it will come into force the next day after it is published. So it will be fully in force, okay, meaning that the new types of investments that you need to do will be the ones that you need to look at if you want to apply for the golden visa, and you will no longer be able to do it with the current investments that we have. This means that this law will come into force very quickly. So there was no vacatio legis, what we call an extension, a period where a grace period, where a new law is not immediately enforced so that people have time to adjust and to make changes. So in this case, there will be no vacatio legis, no extension or grace period. So it will come into force immediately the day after it is published. Okay. So this is basically it in terms of timings and legislation. Okay.
Right.
Perfect. Just so we actually got a question from Jason, who says that obviously with the real estate route, the minimum investment period is for 5 years. However, under the new 500,000 rule, so the fund investment, how long is the investment tied up for? And can I still apply for my passport after 5 years?
Well, I don't know if you want my inputs, James, or if you want to. Well, just to say that, and this is very important, so that people are very clear. One thing is changing, let's call it the golden visa law, and another thing is the citizenship. Citizenship is something that is it's a different legal framework. Okay. So the golden visa law is going to change, okay, as we just spoke now and explained in detail, but the citizenship law is not going to change. So it's still the same and will not be subject to any change whatsoever. And according to the citizenship law, any person that holds a residency card for more than 5 years is entitled to apply for a Portuguese passport. Okay, so this means that with the new law or with the current law, the investor needs to hold his investment for 5 years so that he maintains his residency card for 5 years, and after that he can apply for the citizenship. Okay, this is important, and maybe I forgot also to highlight that the path to citizenship will not change with the new law. It will be exactly the same, and it will be granted for anyone that holds a visa for 5 years. Same. Okay, not affected in any way.
Okay, perfect. So I guess in that circumstance, citizenship doesn't change. How long you hold the investment will really depend on the fund manager or the fund itself, and we can have those conversations when they arise with prospective clients.
Brilliant. And I think just looking at the questions, we've got room for a couple more questions. We've got about 5 minutes left on the webinar. Mr. Ghosh asks a question: for the €280,000 investment, even a housing property counts, like a condominium unit? So unfortunately, no. If you got in on the rules 2 years ago, it would have. We had clients buying apartments in Lisbon, renting them out. That was one of the previous changes. The government took that off the list. The reason there is quite logical. Like house prices and condos were starting to get pretty toppy, and locals are starting to get priced out of their own market. So if you're a politician, it's an easy vote winner to ban those types of investments. So really that's why, as James explained, the current and the final few weeks, the €280,000 property, they are packaged products. They are specifically for the purpose of getting clients on the Golden Visa and getting through 5 years worth of renewals to hit the minimum period. So we'll just see if there's any more questions. Otherwise, we might just have time for a little bit more from Tirso in terms of other things, pointers and hacks that have useful sharing. Is there anything else, Tirso, from your point of view that's worthwhile mentioning that you've learned in your years doing this?
Yes, so I think it's also important to clarify, and people normally they have doubts. Well, if I do my application now or if I do it after, will it still be valid, acceptable in terms of renewals, in terms of how does it work? So any application that is submitted now and is not approved until the new law comes into force will still be valid and acceptable. Okay. Any application that is submitted now and is not approved until the new law comes into force will still be renewed in accordance with the requirements of the minimum stay of 7 days only per year in Portugal. And this is very important because it's what's made the Portuguese Golden Visa so successful. It's the only one in the world that offers such a flexibility in terms of minimum period of stay. So this will be kept. The government made it clear, and according with the new laws and the current law, the minimum stay will still be 7 days in average per year. Okay. In terms of family reunification, you can do it at any time. So it means that if you put your application now, you can do family reunification in 1 year or 2, even with the new law coming into force, you can still do it with your old application. Okay, so these are practical aspects that people feel comfortable to know, and that's important that well, everyone is fully aware that renewals will be safeguarded, family reunification as well, and the minimum period of stay will be kept at an average of 7 days per year only in Portugal. Okay.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tirso. And just rounding things up today, obviously, we've learned a lot about the new rules. We've learned about a very narrow window of opportunity that James explained. We've had a valuable insight from Tirso in terms of how the Portuguese government are now viewing the continuation of the scheme. And after all the noise and misinformation written online, we're pleased to provide clarity that yes, the Golden Visa is continuing. In terms of us, James and I, face-to-face, we are here in Hong Kong. We're available to meet face-to-face. In terms of people in Singapore, I'm in Singapore 22nd of September, which is a Friday, all the way through to the Monday, the 25th of September. What I normally do is stay at the Fullerton Hotel and hold a Portuguese Golden Visa clinic. Slots do get booked up, so we've got about 5 slots remaining on the Friday the 22nd and Monday the 25th. In terms of London, I'm in London October the 15th, 16th and 17th, and we'll be seeing clients in central London. So always happy to have a coffee, have a drink, and explain where things are at, and more importantly, get you comfortable with the program, get you comfortable with the investment, and ensure that you get the outcome that you paid for. So thank you very much, Tirso, for joining us from Lisbon today. Thank you, James, here in Hong Kong. And we will do another one next month. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tirso.